There was blood on my lip before I even understood what I'd done wrong. 1 second, I was smiling through tears, holding out the little stick that was supposed to change our lives. The next, my cheek burned, and I tasted iron. He'd hit me before. Once. Said it was stress, said he was sorry. And like a fool, I believed him. Because when you love someone, you start to mistake their darkness for something you can fix. But this time was different. This time, I wasn't just bleeding for me. I pressed a shaking hand against my stomach. 2 faint lines, a heartbeat I hadn't even heard yet, but already loved. "Marcus," I whispered. "Please just look at it. I thought you'd be happy." He laughed, a sound that didn't belong in any kind of love. "Happy?" he repeated, his eyes glassy with alcohol. "You think trapping me with a kid makes me happy?" My throat went dry. "I didn't trap you," I said quietly. "It just happened. But it's ours." The slap came again. Faster. Harder. I stumbled, hitting the table corner. The test rolled out of my hand and disappeared under the couch. He towered over me, breathing hard. "You think I'm going to be some pathetic father now?" he sneered. "You think I'll stay because of this?" "Marcus, stop," I begged. "Please, you're scaring me." "Good." His voice dropped low. "You should be scared." The room spun. He grabbed my wrist, squeezing until my skin burned. I tried to pull away, but it only made him angrier. He shoved me back against the wall. The picture frames rattled. My breath caught. "Don't touch me," I said, though it came out like a whimper. He leaned closer. "You think you can tell me what to do now? You think that baby changes anything?" My voice broke. "It's your baby too." His hand went to my throat. Everything froze. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Only the sound of my pulse, loud, frantic, begging. He leaned in, eyes wild. "Say that again." Tears blurred my sight. I thought of the small life inside me, the one I hadn't even told anyone about. I tried to speak, but the words came out as air. When he finally let go, I fell to my knees, coughing. The room tilted. My phone was on the counter, close, but not close enough. I crawled toward it, fingers trembling. He saw. The crash was deafening. He hurled the phone at the wall, shattering it into pieces. The sound made me flinch. "Don't even think about it," he warned, voice shaking with fury. I pressed my palms against the floor. My heartbeat pounded against my ribs. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. All I could do was pray, silently, desperately, that anyone would hear. And then it came. Knock. A sound so sharp it cut through the chaos. Marcus froze. I froze too. Knock. Louder this time. Slow. Heavy. Certain. He turned toward the door, jaw tight. "Who the hell is that?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. My vision blurred again. He straightened his shirt, wiped his face, and stalked to the door. When he opened it, the hallway light spilled in, and with it a stranger. Tall. Broad shoulders. A man stood there, calm but unshakable, like he'd walked through storms before. "Can I help you?" Marcus asked, fake smile twisting his lips. The stranger didn't answer right away. He looked past Marcus, right at me. And in that single glance, I felt something strange, stillness. He didn't look shocked. Didn't look disgusted. He just saw me. "I heard something break," the man said finally, voice low and steady. "You okay in there?" Marcus scoffed. "Yeah, my partner dropped something. We're fine." "Your partner looks hurt," the man said evenly. Marcus stiffened. "Mind your business." The man's eyes didn't move. He just tilted his head slightly. "Move," he said quietly. Marcus laughed, but there was no power in it. "Excuse me?" The man took one small step forward. Not threatening, not fast, but there was something in that step, control, danger, calm. It made Marcus flinch. "I said move," the man repeated. Something inside the room shifted. Marcus backed up, just enough for the stranger to step through the doorway. He crouched beside me, slow and careful, keeping his hands where I could see them. "Hey," he said softly. "Can you breathe?" I nodded weakly, though my throat burned. My voice didn't come out right. He didn't touch me yet. He just waited, eyes kind, steady, like he had all the time in the world. Marcus snapped. "You can't just walk into my place." The man stood up, meeting Marcus's glare with quiet authority. "I just did," he said simply. They stared at each other. For a moment, the room was thick with something electric, power without violence. Then Marcus cursed under his breath and grabbed his keys. "This isn't over," he spat, before slamming the door on his way out. Silence. Real silence. For the first time in months, the air didn't feel like a cage. The man looked down at me again. "You're safe now," he said gently. I wanted to believe him, but safety felt like a word I'd forgotten the meaning of. He took off his jacket, placed it over my shoulders. The warmth made me shake harder. He didn't ask for my name, didn't ask what happened. He just sat beside me, quiet, steady, like he understood that sometimes silence is the only kindness left. The adrenaline drained from my body. Everything started fading, the pain, the fear, the noise. I heard his voice again, softer this time. "Stay with me," he said. "You're safe. I promise." Safe. Such a small word. But in that moment, it sounded like hope. My eyes grew heavy. His face blurred, his voice the only thing keeping me from slipping away. And just before everything went dark, one thought echoed in my head. I didn't know who he was, but his voice made me believe I could still be saved. The first thing I noticed when I woke up was the smell, coffee and something clean. Not the usual cigarette smoke and cheap cologne that used to cling to my skin like regret. This was softer. The second thing was silence. Real silence. No yelling. No glass breaking. No footsteps pacing like a storm waiting to hit. I blinked against the sunlight spilling through the curtains. The bed beneath me was warm, too big, too neat to be mine. For a second, I panicked. My body stiffened. My heart leapt into my throat. Then a voice came from across the room. "Hey, you're awake." He was sitting by the window, his sleeves rolled up, a coffee cup in his hand. The man from last night. The stranger. The one who stopped the world long enough for me to breathe again. I pushed myself up slowly, wincing. My body felt heavy, my throat raw. He stood immediately, setting the cup aside. "Careful," he said. "You passed out for a while. You hit your head pretty bad." My lips trembled. "Where am I?" "My place," he said simply. "You were bleeding, so I brought you here. Don't worry, the door's locked. He can't come in." I looked around the small apartment, gray walls, bookshelves, a couch that looked too big for one person. Everything was tidy, controlled, but lived in somehow. My hands gripped the blanket tighter. You didn't call the police?" He shook his head. "You were half conscious. I didn't want to make it worse without your say." There was something in his tone, not pity, not pressure. Just patience. Like he'd already learned not to ask questions people weren't ready to answer. I stared down at my shaking hands. "You should have left me there." He frowned. "You don't mean that." "I do." My voice broke. "He'll come after me. He always does." He didn't argue. Didn't promise that everything would be fine. He just nodded slowly, as if saying, "I hear you." Then he said, "Eat something first. We'll figure it out after." He walked to the kitchen. I watched him quietly, the way he moved, precise but calm, like someone used to being careful. The sound of the kettle clicking brought a strange kind of peace. When he came back, he placed a plate of toast and a mug of tea in front of me. I didn't touch it. My stomach twisted with guilt and confusion. He noticed. "You don't have to force it," he said gently. "But the tea might help with the shaking." I reached for it, my hand trembling. The warmth seeped into my fingers like a memory I didn't know I missed. After a long silence, I whispered, "Why did you help me?" He looked at me then, really looked, not like I was broken, but like I was surviving. He said quietly, "Because I couldn't walk away this time." This time. Those two words sat between us, heavy with something unspoken. I wanted to ask what he meant, but fear still wrapped around my throat like a ghost. So I just nodded. The rest of the morning passed in quiet rhythms. The hum of the fridge, the sound of traffic outside, the slow drip of rain against glass. Every now and then, he'd glance at me, checking without intruding. When I finally gathered enough courage to stand, I asked softly, "Do you live alone?" He nodded. "Yeah. Don't you think it's strange? Bringing a stranger here." He gave a small smile, the kind that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Maybe. But sometimes strangers are safer than the people we know." That line stayed with me all day. By the second night, I'd stopped flinching every time he walked past. By the third, I started sleeping without the lamp on. But the fear didn't vanish, it just got quieter. Like a wounded animal hiding in the dark, waiting. Sometimes I'd wake up at dawn and see him sitting on the couch, reading or staring out the window, like he didn't sleep much either. He was calm, but not peaceful. There was something underneath, a heaviness he carried but never spoke of. I wanted to ask about it, but I didn't. He didn't ask about me either. And that's how the days went, wordless, gentle, heavy with things we both refused to say. Then one evening, everything shifted. I was helping him make dinner. or at least pretending to. My hands still shook when I used a knife. He was standing next to me, chopping vegetables with quiet focus. Then my phone buzzed. The one he'd fixed for me. The one he said I could use if I wanted to feel less invisible. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. My heart stopped. 3 words flashed across the display. Found you, liar. The knife slipped from my hand and clattered onto the counter. He looked up immediately. What happened? I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. The air felt thick again, too much, too loud. He walked over, took the phone gently from my hand, read the message. His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. He has your number? I nodded, my eyes stinging. He said he'd never stop. I thought if I ran far enough. Hey, his voice cut through my panic like before. Look at me. I did. My breath shook. You're not alone this time, he said. I'm not him, and he's not getting near you again. He typed something into the phone quickly, then placed it face down on the counter. Block it, he muttered, half to himself. Then we'll change your SIM. I wanted to argue, to tell him it wouldn't matter. That Marcus always found a way. But when I looked at his face, something in me finally stopped fighting. Because he didn't look scared for me. He looked angry, in that silent, restrained way only someone who's seen real violence could. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every creak like a warning. I found him sitting in the living room again, shirt half unbuttoned, hair messy, eyes heavy but awake. You're not sleeping either, I said softly. He glanced at me. Didn't want to. Old habits. Old habits. He hesitated, then sighed. I used to live with someone who made nights feel like walking on glass. I guess my body never forgot. I froze. He looked down at his hands, flexed them like he was remembering something. That's why I didn't ask you to explain, he added. Because I already knew what it looked like. My throat tightened. I sat across from him, silence wrapping around us like a blanket. After a long pause, I whispered, What happened to them? He didn't answer right away. His eyes went distant, like he was somewhere else entirely. Then he said, They didn't make it out. I swallowed hard. The words hit like a stone dropped into water. No splash, just depth. He stood after a while, walked to the window. You should sleep, he said softly. Tomorrow we'll go to the station. You can file a report if you want. If I want, I repeated. He nodded. It has to be your choice. Choice. Another word I wasn't used to. I stared at his back, tall, still, almost fragile in the dim light. There was so much he didn't say, but somehow I heard it anyway. I don't know what made me do it, but I asked quietly, Why are you helping me? He turned. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then he walked closer, stopping just a few feet away. His voice was low when he finally spoke. Because once, he said, someone helped me too. Something in his eyes flickered. Pain, memory, something deep. He didn't look away, and neither did I. And in that silence, I realized something. He wasn't my rescuer. He was just as broken, only better at hiding the cracks. The city outside hummed softly through the window. Somewhere far below, a siren wailed, then faded. But in that room, everything stilled. 2 people. 2 ghosts of different storms. Sitting in the half-light, learning how to breathe again. I didn't know if it was healing or just survival, but for the first time, they felt the same. He turned off the lamp and said quietly, Try to rest. Morning will come soon. I lay down, the blanket heavy around me. My eyes burned, but I didn't cry. Instead, I whispered into the dark, barely loud enough for myself to hear. Maybe safe doesn't mean unbroken. Maybe it just means not alone. He didn't answer. But I heard him breathe out, slow, steady, as if my words had found him too. And somewhere between fear and exhaustion, sleep finally came. When I woke the next morning, the apartment was quiet, too quiet. His jacket was gone from the chair. So was he. But on the counter, beside a fresh mug of coffee, was a note written in neat, careful handwriting. Back soon. Don't open the door for anyone. L. And under it, a phone buzzing with an unknown message. You can't hide forever. For a full minute, I just stood there, breathing, shaking, listening to the silence hum in my ears. Then I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I looked at myself in the mirror. The bruises were fading. My face looked tired, pale, but there was something else too, something that hadn't been there before. Life. I touched the mirror's surface and whispered, You made it. And for once, I didn't feel like I was lying. By the time Eli returned, I was sitting on the couch, staring at the message on my phone. He walked in quietly, holding a paper bag and a cautious smile. "Breakfast," he said, setting it down. "Didn't think you'd be awake yet." I turned the phone toward him. He texted again. Eli's jaw tightened. "Did he say where he was?" I shook my head. "No. But I think I know." He frowned. "Noah, it's the old apartment," I said softly. "That's where he always hides when he wants control. It's where I left everything." He stared at me for a moment, then sighed, rubbing a hand through his hair. "You want to go back?" I nodded. "I can't run forever. I need to end this." He didn't argue. He didn't try to stop me. He just looked at me with something that felt a lot like pride, quiet, steady pride. "Then I'm coming with you," he said. The drive back felt endless. The city outside looked the same, people rushing, horns blaring, lives moving, but everything inside me felt different. When we reached the building, my chest tightened. The walls looked smaller now. The door, once a prison, was just a door. Eli stayed a step behind me, silent, watchful. I knocked once. No answer. Then slowly, the door opened from the inside. Marcus stood there, hair messy, eyes sunken, anger burning beneath the surface. He smiled, that same smile that used to make me feel like the world belonged to him. "Well," he said, his voice dripping with venom, "you finally came back." I didn't flinch. "Not this time. I came to get what's mine," I said quietly. His eyes flicked to my stomach, then to Eli, standing behind me. His smile faltered. "Who's that?" "Someone who knows what you really are." Marcus scoffed. "You think hiding behind someone else makes you brave?" I took a step forward. My hands were shaking, but I didn't stop. "No, I think surviving you did." His smirk cracked. He lunged a step closer, but Eli's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Don't." That one word. Calm. Cold. Final. Marcus froze. Maybe it was Eli's tone. Maybe it was the way he stood. Not angry, not violent, just certain. For a second, everything went silent. Then I spoke again, my voice breaking but strong enough. "I'm not yours anymore, Marcus. And you'll never touch me again." The words felt like fire leaving my chest, burning, freeing. He sneered. "You think anyone will believe you?" I pulled out my phone and held it up. "They don't have to believe me. They'll see everything." I pressed play. The recording Eli helped me set up from the night I ran. His voice, his threats, his violence, all of it. His face drained of color. "You." I didn't let him finish. I stepped back. "Goodbye, Marcus." And for the first time, I meant it. We walked out without looking back. The world outside was noisy, bright, too alive, and I let it touch me. The air tasted different. Free. Eli didn't speak until we reached the car. "You did it," he said quietly. "No," I whispered, tears burning in my eyes. "We did." He looked at me then, not like a savior, not like a stranger, but like someone who understood what it meant to crawl out of darkness and still find a way to stand. He smiled, small and soft. "You know, you don't have to go back to being who you were before." I looked out the window, sunlight glinting off the glass. "I don't think I can. I think that version of me died the night he hit me." He nodded. "Then let's not bring him back." Weeks passed. The police took my statement. Marcus was gone, taken, charged, silent. Eli and I stayed in the city. His apartment became something more than a hiding place. It became ours. I learned his story bit by bit. The person he couldn't save. The guilt he carried like a scar. And slowly, we stopped being two broken people trying to survive. We started to live. He still didn't ask questions. And I still didn't tell him everything. But sometimes, when the sun hit his face just right, I thought, maybe I didn't need to. Healing wasn't about forgetting. It was about being seen. One evening, months later, I stood on the balcony. The city lights flickered below, and the air was warm. Eli came up behind me, wrapping his coat around my shoulders. "Cold," he murmured. "Not anymore." He smiled, his hand brushing mine. For a long moment, we just stood there, two people who had been through fire and somehow found peace in the ashes. I turned to him. "Do you think people like us ever stop being scared?" He thought for a while before answering. "Maybe not, but we stopped being silent." That answer made me smile. I leaned against him, the noise of the world fading below. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt safe, not because someone protected me, but because I finally believed I deserved to be. I thought being saved was the end of my story. I never knew it was only the beginning of our journey together.